Welcome to Conscious Conversations. I am Ariana.
And I'm Cami. It's in our hearts to expand your mind and reality
and elevate the consciousness of the world.
One conversation at a time. Hello and welcome to Conscious Conversations with Ariana and Cami. I am Cami, and this is my good friend Ariana. And hello. And today is episode 6, and we are going to tackle the topic of embodiment.
Embodiment, yay! What is embodiment?
What is embodiment? That is a really, really good question. What is embodiment to you?
Gosh, there's embodiment to me is this human flesh suit that we are blessed with and cursed with all at the same time. Yay!
Yay! It's been a journey.
Yes.
So for me, embodiment is, what does it feel like for this little soul fragment of mine to actually come in and inhabit this body that has largely been painful. And oof, that's not a word that that was this physical body experiences really uncomfortable sensations. Tight and burny and restricted and not always free flowing.
Yeah.
So I feel like because of the experiences that I had early on in not being in the body, it has been way more of a journey for me to be in the body. And I remember posing a question 5 or 6 years ago, I guess, that felt really profound to me. What does it feel like to be safe in this body? And I still don't have an answer to that question, but I feel like I'm coming a lot closer.
Yeah.
And exploring a lot more and opening up to deeper discussions with my own body. So there's a lot of us that seem to have these experiences, and maybe it's just a reflection that I'm seeing, where everybody wants to go out, learn to do astral travel, learn to, I'm a starseed, I'm not really a human, and it's too painful to have this human experience, and all of those stories that we tell, and people who are so eager to go out and leave the body, leave the planet. And I just feel like it's an important lesson for us to come into the body and learn to live in the body. And isn't that what we chose to do? I could be wrong. I do want to share that Clarissa Pinkola Estes, Estes, I think is how she pronounces it, who wrote The Women Who Run with the Wolves. She's actually a prolific writer and has written a number of books. And on my recent trip, I was listening to Joyful Body, which is one of her books where she shares a bunch of stories. And it's about how we caretake the body and how we live in the body. And I haven't finished it, but there were a lot of ahas, and it's a lot to take in. It feels really raw when you explore embodiment, and I feel so ill-equipped to talk about it, and yet I do have a body, right? So, and I'm definitely on this journey, and I don't think that my experiences are strictly mine alone in struggling with this. She shared that 81% of all people are born with some disability. incoming in either something, a neurodiversity or a physical something that isn't quite right, that only 19% of people are born with a level of ease in the body and just kind of naturally getting it and being able to drive this vehicle without challenges. That really struck me. I know for a long time I've sort of felt alone. And of course, our experiences are all, individual and shared. But like so often we have experiences and we hide those experiences behind shame and guilt, feeling like we're all alone, and we're not all alone. There's so many of our experiences that so many people can relate to. And that's part of why we're sharing here. And, I appreciate our listeners bearing with us as this podcast journey, for me at least, is a lot about observing my growth as we continue to share deeper and become more comfortable with vulnerability and sharing our stories and our lessons in our conscious conversations. But I feel like I definitely touched on that. I feel like there's so many people who are focused on going out, and I was definitely focused on going out and, performing astral travel and ways of getting out of the body. That was actually very, very comfortable for me. And it was a lot more of, it's been a lot more work for me to come into the body, but I don't feel like this life will be complete if I don't at least explore that.
Interesting. I think the first thing that I want to say about that is that while I respect wherever she got her statistics from, my point of view is that there are a lot of doctors putting a lot of labels on people who I don't think they need those definitions, and I don't think those definitions serve them. So I would personally say that 81% or 80% people coming into this world have problems is a bit inflated to me, to my point of view. I definitely have had my own childhood issues with the body. For me, I was a very skinny kid who had weight complex issues. I was very skinny, but I could pinch this micro layer of fat on my stomach. And I was convinced, I'm talking 9, 10, 11, really young, that I was fat and there was something wrong with me. I had a lot of my experience with my body was being beaten by my father. So that was some body stuff, dealing with that at a young age. And then discovering at a fairly young age the joys of sensuality and intimacy, sexual contact. So I was living in this dichotomy in my household where I could easily be beaten with a leather belt. And then on the flip side of that, I was at least enjoying my body in some way. Looking back on it, it certainly wasn't healthy, but it gave me a sense of value and worth to have that kind of intimate connection with my first sexual boyfriend. The other thing that I wanted to say about that was I do feel that the reason why I was so skinny was because I had so much anxiety from my household, and that my whole nervous system was constantly shaking, and that created a very high metabolism, but it was nervousness and anxiety. It wasn't coming from a healthy place. So I had a lot of self-loathing at a very young age, and a lot of body image issues that brought me to bulimia and different phases of my teens and early 20s, a lot of bulimia and a lot of just flat out starving myself. And I think there's a lot of people, and not just women, men and women, that suffer from those body image issues.
Absolutely. Nearly everybody. in my experience. And again, is that just a reflection of what I've experienced, or, we reflect an awful lot of what's inside of us, arguably 100%.
Yeah.
A friend and teacher named Tia LaVoie says, the world is a 360-degree mirror. What are you seeing? Right. So a lot of the experiences that arguably all of the experiences that we have and what we encounter, especially like there are no good men, or you see all of these things with, everybody has body image issues. I understand that it's possible that some people may experience a reality where they don't see that. They don't see people with body image issues. They don't see that, there are no good men, and, these things, right? So these core beliefs that are reflected back to us. So I'm just acknowledging that it's possible that some people have the experience, but I'm only speaking from my perspective, in that everybody I've ever known, I think, has had some level of body image issues, and there's a spectrum there, right? As to,
I guess I want to clarify my last statement about that percentage. Perhaps it's the way that you worded it was 81% come in with body image issues. I don't come in with body image issues. I think it's instilled within us, and then I'll buy that 80%. For sure.
A medical deviance, I guess, is what I meant. 81, according to her, and she is a PhD. So you take that into consideration. She's highly scientific. I don't know where she got her data, but 81% coming in with something in the body or the brain that is, outside of Western medicine's range of normal. Not that they have automatic body issues with that, but anyway. So
right. Allopathy is looking for things to sell you.
Yes. So, they're looking for what's wrong. They're not looking for what's right.
I mean, the medical industry is looking to put labels on you. And if you have a label, and if it freaks you out enough, you'll run out and buy their pharmaceuticals.
Exactly.
So do those 81% really have issues, or are they buying the narrative?
Exactly. No, point well taken. Absolutely. I just found it really interesting.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. And if
First of all, where did that come from, and what's that?
Well, I mean, we're taking a left turn here with our embodiment talk. We're going to do that over here. If the medical industry finds some more titles and labels and things, then maybe we can up that percentage to 99%.
Let's do it.
I suspect there's a goal there. So let's just see how many people we can make self-loathing so that they require some kind of a medication for either their weight or their anxiety or their depression or their, self-loathing or their social issues or whatever.
Or how about we consider viewing things a little bit differently and looking at what's right? And how about we consider looking at things differently in general? There is a writing that I would love to share from Tia LaVoie, with permission. And Ariana, if you don't mind, I'd love to read it.
I appreciate that. That you got her permission to read that to our listeners. I love that. So yes.
It's a beautiful and powerful share, I feel. So I intend that I do it justice. Thank you, Tia LaVoie. They used to say that I was too ugly, too fat, and not enough. And they used to say that I was too quiet, too dumb, and didn't deserve. And in all my shimmering of divinity and in all my youthful innocence, I began to listen to hurtful words of reflections of my conditioned conditionings. They used to say that I was too smart for my own good and too stupid to know success, and too wild to be dignified and too tomboy to be girly. They used to say that I shouldn't play with the garden snails and the puppy dog tails, and that I was too pretty to play in the mud, and that I shouldn't sit like that, and I shouldn't react when the boys pushed me. They used to say that I shouldn't have hit that boy for grabbing my friend in places that were hers and sacred and private. I said, that's hers and sacred and private, left to my own defenses, because they used to say, now you listen to the grown-ups and do as they say. And when someone told me to be silent and tell no one, as they felled my boundaries and trespassed what was mine and sacred and private, I obeyed. And I became silent and angry. And I learned to smile through clenched jaws, and I learned to turn my head and swallow back tears, and I learned to eat those harsh words with heavy meals to comfort that empty spot inside. And I learned to accept invitations to romance even when there was no romance. I learned to receive hard-handed smacks across a tender-skinned face without flinching in the brief temporal moments when I thought that I had enough. I learned to whisper yes when most definitely meant to shout no. And they used to say that I was broken. And all of that jaw clenching brought me a rough case of TMJ and this world owes me. And all of that head turning and tear swallowing brought me migraines and asthma. And all of that comfort food consumption consumed me and gave me a gift of never feeling comfortable in my own skin, no matter what angle I caught my reflection from. And all of the one-night stands and dark-hearted connectings brought me a chronic case of attempting the validation of my own self-worth through the approval of others. And those hard-handed slaps soon grew to be hard-fisted punches and shaking the shit out of me because you care conversations. The physical was bearable compared to the perpetual, you'll never leave me, I'm all you've got. And the, if you leave me, you will never make it. Replete with shivers, shakes, and coughing. I need you, I'll never do it again, became my drug of choice. And anything to kill the pain became the chocolate frosting on my depression cake. Don't talk with your mouth full, and in fact, don't speak at all. Remember, good little girls are best seen and not heard. You do want to be good, don't you? The lessons that we are most resistant to realize are the most valuable of the treasures of our wisdom. And in the most perfect of times, in the most perfect of places, that wisdom has a way of reaching us. And something deep within urges me so very gently and so very quietly to keep going. And something deep within urges me so very gently and so very quietly to listen closely. And so I do. And the gentle, quiet voice continues to speak. And the more she does, the more I listen. And the more she speaks, the more I learn. And I'm reminded that the choice is mine of how I want this to go. Paths of fear are my choice, and I can choose to perpetuate and promote all too familiar cycles. Why do that? Paths of love are my choice, and I can choose to transform to what is new, based on what I deserve, based on my pricelessness. And why wouldn't I do that? That voice keeps speaking, and I keep listening, and eventually I am hearing even when I don't want to. And that voice speaks sweet mercies and kind redemptions, especially on the steps where I stumble and fall and cry out and judge and flail about in the quicksand, thinking I'm drowning, only to realize I am standing and there are a myriad of ways to be free. And that heart voice keeps speaking, and I am still listening. And it reminds me that it's important to be love and live from that knowing, as that is the path to my own liberations. True liberation. There is no savior to save me, none but myself. And so it is so true that we are so free that it is our very own choice to choose bondage. What are you worth? And what do you choose? That voice gifts me words of wisdom, reminders to help my navigation through current limitations. It speaks outside, reflects the inside, and I look at my home. Would it not be honoring reflections if we kept our sacred spaces as clean as when we were expecting company to visit? That voice teaches me that I am the source of the company I keep. And if I don't like who comes to visit, then it is time to take out the trash. That voice reminds me that snakes can't hide in the grass when you keep the lawn mowed. And that heart voice shines with heart light love. And I am listening more and hearing more. And the more I listen, the more I am compelled to take action. And the more I take action, the more that change keeps happening. And my divinity wants me to transcend. And my higher self wants me to grow. And that voice of my spirit and that shine in my heart, even through my darkest hours, tells me, be cool, stay present. We panic from our perspectives, not experience. We panic from our perspectives, not experience. Shh, be cool, stay present. We panic from our perspective, not experience. And it is our choice in how we choose to perceive anything on our path at any time. How does one know failure in life if one is never introduced to can't? And how does one fail their dreams if never acquainted with the meaning of impossible? Impossible. Impossible. What if impossible was actually read by lazy eyes snuggled up in bed with fear? What if the one in fear is actually the two in love? I'm possible. I'm possible. And all we need to do is grant a little space, a little pause, a little breathing room between the two to venture once again into the realm of infinite possibilities, infinite I'm possibles. Space, yes, which allows us room to grow. And let us grow into that space as we expand. And as we grow, eventually, we will grow beyond that and grow beyond that and grow beyond that. And then some, and then some more. And sooner than later, our consciousness grows and we expand into more than this and way more than that and all that could ever and will be. They used to say, well, they don't say anymore, or at least I'm no longer listening. And even if they do, it is no longer affecting the voice I choose to honor and the life I choose to live. And at one time they said, and at one time I did, and now I know the truth. Thank you. Bless. I love that writing. It's one of my favorite writings of hers.
Yeah, I love that.
And I feel it speaks directly to the topic of embodiment.
Yeah, definitely.
And that small voice being, the higher self or the body, even in speaking to the body, the conversations that we can have with the body when we actually listen. The things that it says can be pretty raw.
Yeah. The first few paragraphs of that writing are really potent to me, where she talks about they used to say I was too ugly or too fat or not enough. Just sort of, and she goes on with that, how as young children we're like sponges, and so much of what we hear around us, even if those words aren't directed at us, I think we pick up on it just in society in general. And as well as the people that say these things to us thoughtlessly, unkindly, and start to create these judgments about the self. Like as I was sharing that when I was a little kid, I was skinny and I still had fat perceptions about myself that were, in retrospect, ridiculous. But I had so many levels of unworthiness and not good enough, and warped body concepts from movies and magazines and, all of these icons that were presented to us in those years. And even when I'd have to say, even when people would tell me you're pretty, especially as a little kid, you're pretty, I didn't believe them, because you're not good enough had already been so embedded. It was this poison circulating throughout my being that was very difficult to penetrate.
It is a poison. That's a really good way of putting it. I agree with that. And I was going to ask you, you know, where you feel this programming came from. And it is societal. It has been. It's definitely in the movies. It's in the television or the programming.
Yeah.
They call it programming for a reason. And from the time we are born until maybe 7 or 8 years old, our brains are wide open and simply recording everything. Right. And so they record all of the impressions. So it may not even have been things that were said to us, but things that were where we observed the people in our circle talking about themselves, where we observed how people talked about themselves on TV, if we were exposed to TV. It's all of that. It's in the programming, and there's a lot of deprogramming that is required in order to progress in this life, to wake up. And I feel like a lot of people are waking up now and understanding and seeing the level of programming that they've been under. And they're opening up to different ways of viewing the world and acknowledging that maybe what they've been taught was not true. And beyond not true, maybe a complete freaking lie. All of it, right? More and more people are waking up to that. So, yeah, there's an awful lot there.
A lot there to unpack.
Yeah. So specifically on the topic of embodiment, it is all around us in all forms of media. I do see more positive changes. And again, I don't know if what I'm seeing is visible to everybody, but I'm definitely seeing it. I'm seeing more and more people rise up. I'm seeing more and more women in particular waking up to say, no, this isn't okay anymore. And we need to change some things around here and do things a different way, because what they said isn't true. I'm seeing more and more women, as opposed to girls, and the cat fighting and the backstabbing and the doing all the things behind, our backs, and the sisterhood wounds and all of that. I'm seeing more and more women come together, empowering one another, supporting one another, and not in an offhanded, sideways compliment sort of way that, reveals that they have their own stuff that they're dealing with, and that most of the stuff that we see often enough is some level of projection. There's just more people making space to consider, is that even true? What I'm being told, what I've always believed, is that even true? It's causing a lot of existential crises, a lot of people going through, what the heck is this even about? But I am seeing what I feel to be positive movement of more acceptance, more love, more support.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it in that perspective, and I totally agree with you. We are in very exciting times. What's popping for me is from a numerology aspect, we're in a universal year of 7, and the way I interpret 7, one of the big aspects that I'm seeing of that 7 year is existentialist questions, taking the time to go inward and really start asking, why are we here? What's really going on in the world? What's my life purpose? How do I really want to show up in the world? What is spirituality to me other than what I've already been taught? And do I really agree with what has been taught to me as true? And it's a really exciting time to see that in action, people starting to question and transform. And I'm also kind of brought to this space of, isn't it interesting when, on the topic of embodiment, when we see what's happening right now in the world on the topic of your body and your gender,
Mhm.
And we're, with all due respect to those, and I actually do know adults that have transitioned and are very happy with their choice. I do think that there are a lot of young people, children, teens, preteens, that are being led to make these changes or believe that these changes are going to make them feel better about themselves without really exploring any other trauma or issues that may be underlying. But what we're seeing, again, with all due respect, I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but the number of transitioning, and then on the other side of that, the number of people detransitioning, and with Dylan Mulvaney, the ridiculousness. I mean, he really has sold himself as this caricature of what a young man thinks a female is. And so we're seeing this level of what I think is ridiculousness in some areas. And I'm not speaking to the people that I know who took a lot of time to make the transitioning choice, and it is the best choice for them. But we're seeing a lot of ridiculousness in this area. And I think that part of that is part and parcel to women saying, wait a minute, what about my body and being a woman do I appreciate as I'm looking at this skinny stick figure young man prancing around in a dress, acting like this ridiculous, foolish personification cartoon of his interpretation of being female. I think it's very interesting. And with, I believe with all things that good comes out of, even the darkest of topics. And I really feel my heart goes out to the detransitioners that feel like they've been tricked into a poor solution or not told all the ramifications before they went into it.
I feel like in times past, in previous civilizations, they may have explored things more deeply. They may have had rites of passage. They may have had studies and teachings on the human and concepts that we all have dark and light female, dark and light male qualities, not in equal measure, right? But regardless of our physical gender, we all have these qualities. And I am not taking anything away from people who come into this life as perhaps a soul who has experienced primarily lifetimes of another gender, and here they are in this different gender exploring this, and that they may feel extraordinarily out of place, or there are so many different possible combinations. And on the soul level, I believe we are all androgynous, and so we are exploring, but it's the medical the term mutilation wants to be used here. It's the medical mutilation that I struggle with. Messing with hormones, not knowing the true impacts of that, and performing these science experiments. And for those who have transitioned and are experiencing joy and expression as their true self of what they know themselves to be, I applaud them. And I'm glad that medical science has progressed to the point that they can be supported in that. It's the agenda of pushing it for people without the level of education of let's explore your whole soul and how you might express that, right? And it's the pushing of the agenda of people who are, in their teens, and then all of a sudden decide that, well, everybody else is doing it, so I will too, or it's something that's not like really deep within them, or something that is in the programming that is pushing something that is not pushing for them to explore something that really isn't thoroughly considered. And also not acknowledging that during the years of puberty, let's say from the ages of like 12 to at least 20, if not 25, the decision-making part of the brain is shut down in order to make room for puberty, right? And so they're not really able to, that's why we do stupid stuff when we're teenagers. That's why, because our decision-making part of the brain is literally shut down. It's part of the brain development, right? So that really needs to be taken into consideration. And there needs to be a loving guidance offered, right? You don't want to leave big decisions like this up to the teens. And I get that some parents are horribly controlling and that they need to have some level of autonomy and privacy and all of that. I don't know. It's just such a sticky topic. But it definitely involves, owning and making our own decisions, and how many of these kids are making these decisions, these big irreversible, really. I understand that there are detransitioning processes, but really irreversible decisions out of hostility and anger and feeling misunderstood, and by parents, that somewhere that disconnection happened, and almost out of spite to the parents. I've felt some of that, and I'm so sorry for everybody involved in that. That's heartbreaking to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it is heartbreaking. I've watched many detransitioner videos. And you look at them and you're like, Pat, remember from Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, I do. I'm not going to try the impression.
Yeah. Because they've messed with the hormones long enough and done whatever level of operations before changing their mind, where you can't entirely tell if they're male or female, because their original biology has been affected by the flooding of hormones. So now you've got biological females who will always have stubble on their face, and they've had their breasts removed, and they're regretting that they can't breastfeed their children now that they are going on to be female and get married and have kids. And then the flip side of the boys, the detransitioning process of what they do below the waist for the boys is horrific. Horrific. Surgery after surgery after complication and complication is terrifying as a parent, personally, and it's concerning to our society. And then we have to look at the grander scale of things from a metaphysical perspective, and we can say, well, it's a choice, and it's this soul's decision to go through this for whatever reason, and they're going to have another lifetime to do something different and learn from this experience, right? And there we go. Great. So, wow, I really didn't expect that whole topic to come up under embodiment. And Cami, unless you have anything else to add to that, perhaps we can sort of segue back to conventional embodiment topics.
Sure. Yeah, I feel it was an important topic to discuss. I'm sure that there's a lot that it will bring up for people, for the listeners. And, there's stuff that, in our own lives, for the people that we know and love, it's a relevant topic. So
Yeah.
I honor that it was part of the discussion, and we can move off.
Cool. What's popping for me is a topic that we've talked about around embodiment off camera or blogging, so to speak. Something that has come up for me anyway is divorcing my body. And it went, when this phrase or concept hit me, I was like, wow. Because I think there was just at some point in my 20s and 30s, no, maybe later than that, even 30s and 40s, perimenopause-ish time period where I stopped really wanting to look in the mirror. I stopped wanting to care for my body. I stopped connecting myself with the body, which is embodiment, being connected to your body, and really kind of divorcing myself from the body as much as I could, because I was not comfortable with what it was doing or where it was going.
And that is a super valid experience that I believe so many women go through, especially in the that transition from mother to crone, right? That perimenopausal journey. I find it interesting that I'm finding myself having almost the opposite journey. In that for most of my life, I felt like my body betrayed me. And that we had a hostile roommate type of relationship. And it's been in this perimenopausal journey that I am really learning to make deep friends with my body and honor her, and hey, what do you need? And be more tender and loving and accepting and listening, and feeling a lot more mutual love there. And recognizing very recently where I've had a narcissistic relationship with my body and how I dictated to it. And that was from a conversation that I had with my body that I'm not going to share today, but may share at some point. But it's been a revelation to me. So while I recognize that there are so many who are going through what you're experiencing with, reaching a point where at this point your body starts to betray you, I feel like I'm over on the other side of it, feeling like my body has betrayed me my whole life, or I had that impression, and now we're making friends. Now we're coming together. Now I'm a lot more tender and compassionate and loving and supportive and wanting to do good things for my body and actually inhabit a body. And I know I'm not alone in that either. There are a number of people where you cannot find a fuck to give. And you lose your filter, excuse me, as we hit this, transition point. And so there's that side of it as well, where we have this journey with our hormones and start to lose our filter and our shoulds and ought tos and all of this, and really learn to come into our own. And for many, it's both the experience of losing the filter and simultaneously feeling betrayed by this body that used to serve them. And maybe 1 minute it's one and 1 minute it's the next. And that is, and maybe it's the intensity of these feelings and the hormones and whatever that I completely suppressed in my teenage puberty years that I am now experiencing and allowing myself to experience. And I'm not going to say that it is a completely ease-filled journey, because it is not. It is bumpy. There are moments that I just want to cry and I don't know why. But I am way more deeply feeling just about every day. I am growing in the feeling and listening. What are you trying to tell me? Because the body speaks. It speaks so clearly if we only learn to listen.
Absolutely. I think what I'm finding so amusing is that my journey with embodiment is like the polar opposite of yours, which I really think a fabulous point for anyone out there listening. There's no right way or wrong way to go through your embodiment journey. You may be someone who was okay in your body in your younger years for the most part, and come to a place where you feel like your body is betraying you to some degree. That's kind of where I'm at. And while you're talking, I'm realizing, like, to a large degree, I was a control freak with my body. Yeah, that's really interesting. I never really thought about that before. I didn't actually have a relationship with my body, but I was having fun with it, and I was, for the most part, enjoying it. So interesting that, like, the physical abuse was there, but it was just sort of a thing that happened from time to time, that I'm sure affected me in some ways, but I don't know, not as deeply as I might think it would have. It's very interesting, but very fair for anyone listening. There's no wrong way to do embodiment. There's no wrong way to grow into a relationship with your body. And most absolutely, the body speaks to us in so many different ways. It's through discomfort, through sensations,
through dis-ease.
Dis-ease, yes, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of people know of Louise Hay's book. Do you know the title?
You Can Heal Your Life. Is that the one?
Right. Or you can heal your body, or you heal your body, heal your life, something like that. Louise Hay. That's a great starting point, I think, for people to start to learn how the body speaks to you.
Absolutely.
And I do also find that with the intuition, there's a conversation with your body if you so choose to engage in that conversation. Like, hey, body, what do you want to do right now? And you may get a vision. I used to play that game, but my body always wanted to go exercise, and it would really piss me off. So we stopped talking.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I can't talk to you anymore. We can't communicate. I think we need a divorce.
I'm not doing that, okay?
That is so funny. I love that.
I know, it's silly.
I don't know that we're really taught to have those conversations unless you're, involved in certain, modalities and certain circles, where, and that's not directly, but pretty sure that's where I first learned it, is somebody who had been in some certain circles where they had these, discussions. Body, what do you want to do today? I just find it so, it's opened up a lot of conversation, and I thought that, like, things were pretty cool, right? Like, I was developing this relationship with my body and having these regular conversations and using my body as a pendulum, and really deeply feeling and exploring a lot of massive gifts, especially in being able to work with other people and feeling on some level what they were feeling in their body through my body as a compass or as a tool, right? Not taking on their stuff anymore, but rather having it as a reflection, a little bit of a hint of, oh, are you feeling this? Because I'm feeling this, right? So I thought that I was making such great progress with that in working together with my body as a tool. And I have found even deeper layers. And as I continue to do this work, the layers, it just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. It's not like I'm actively looking for things to clear or actively looking for this to happen. It just seems to be happening sort of organically. And I would point back to the reading from Tia, where she mentions something like that, like the more you continue to do the work, the more the voice speaks, the more the relationship develops, the more you grow. Yeah, I echo that. It happens, and I have no idea how deep it may go. I don't have a goal in mind. I just know that it's a very interesting journey and exploration. Definitely worthwhile. Not always comfortable.
Yeah.
But I'd say on some level more comfortable than it's been in the past, where I completely ignored the body and told it to shut up and just keep going. Come on, just keep going. What's your problem? Right? And how I talk to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then that relates to how I talk to other people. And the more kindly I talk to myself, the more kindly, in general, I find myself talking to other people. I'm not going to say that I'm not triggered now and then by certain people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, and I love that we're able to share polar opposite journeys, to share with people, look, there is no right way. We're just sharing our journeys, right? And here's a reflection. It's not, you're not just getting one side, you're getting two very, very different sides, right? And then you may be somewhere in the middle or somewhere completely different. And all of that is okay. And you need to know that this is an individual journey.
Yeah.
There is no prescribed way of doing it.
Yeah. The other interesting thing that we have polar opposite, like when I was a kid, no filter. Teenager, 20s, 30s, no filter. I'm actually trying to install the filter now.
That's interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely having less of it. I wouldn't say it's completely gone, but there are moments where I'm like, oh, I'm going to grab it. Like, where'd my filter go? Yeah. So for, any sensitive ears who, I will drop a bomb every now and then, and my apologies.
Yeah. Yay. So again, no wrong way to make your way through life. And I almost feel like the life experience is about experiencing both sides of all things, right?
It is. This does still seem to be a world of polarity, although that may or may not be shifting, where we, what's really, really loud in my ear is we learn first what love is not in order to learn what love is, more often than not. Mm-hmm. And that applies to many things, but that seems to be the core message.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the wounding comes in. So that's not just loving other people, that's loving ourselves and all aspects of love and unconditional love and all the different types of love.
Mm-hmm.
And we go through life in the way that we've been taught when we were kids and we were wide open and we were absolutely recording every single thing. And we didn't even know about individuality. And we thought that we were all part of the everything and all of which we are. But when we are children, we take on things so personally and we take things as our fault when they're not our fault. Right? The things that are going on around us, the things that are happening with our parents, our caregivers, and people in society in general, and the reflections that are offered. And we take that as our own, and it's never even ours to take.
Yeah.
And that contributes to the the wounding, the suffering, the all of that, the misunderstandings.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all part of, that's also part of embodiment for me. And I love the, body show me yes, body show me no, because the more, especially people who are highly sensitive or consider themselves to be empathic, the more that we own our own energy and learn those boundaries truly between ourselves and another, then we know our yes, we know our no, and we can't be rocked. I think that's super important for people to come into that. If nothing else, please come into that. Know your truth, and it will change your life.
It's an interesting dichotomy, really, on this life experience, this physical experience of knowing your boundaries, setting your boundaries, and yet also allowing for that interconnectedness. Like a really interesting balance.
It is.
Where do you, and not you, Cammie, but the collective you, where do you have walls up or boundaries up or shields up that are blocking out the goodness? And when you have those walls or shields up, then you're just incarcerating yourself with your junk and really amplifying that within your own experience. I think we saw a lot of that during the COVID lockdown, where people were stuck in their houses. And so they were really stuck with dealing with themselves, perhaps their personal issues, their relationship issues that they didn't have to address because they were at work all the time and didn't have to deal with their partner 24/7.
That is absolutely a thing that has definitely, I feel like that's like a whole other topic that we can go down, as far as the revelations, the opening of the crown that has happened, the awakenings that have happened as people have been forced to face some stuff rather than running away from it, and having to sit with themselves and those that they have chosen to surround themselves with, and seeing where they need to take out the trash. Literally and figuratively. That has definitely been an experience. And I had some other thoughts around that as you were speaking, and right now they're flitting off. So I know that they will come back if they need to come back. But that's all part of it as well. And the addictions and the maybe unhealthy patterns that we have adopted, that we were not able to engage in the same way during COVID. And the ways that we maybe learned more about ourselves and what we really want. And there is a level of self-enslavement that we have encountered, that we have on some level chosen often enough because we don't know that there's another choice. So I would hold for people that they know that there is another choice. And that is what I feel like, if we come into alignment with ourselves, then we know where our boundaries are, and our boundaries aren't anymore from a place of needing protection or needing shielding or needing to come from a place of scarcity, like you were talking about. When we really know who we are and where we stop and another person begins, and really what our yes is and what our no is, we can come down and make it that simple. When we really know our own no and yes,
and be able to voice it.
And be able to voice it. And that takes practice. That takes a lot of practice, especially when we've been taught to shut our mouths for whatever reasons, right? We didn't feel like we were able to speak our voice. When we exercise that in speaking our no's and our yeses, and exercise that, and rather than thinking, oh, well, if I speak up, then this person is going to XYZ. Okay. How much does that mean to you? How much does it mean to you to betray yourself, to abandon yourself, to, go against yourself? How does that show up as disease in your body when you do that? How has it throughout your life? When you choose you, not out of narcissistic selfishness, but when you choose you to be solid with you, how does that change things, right? So then you don't need to you're good with you. You know, you're never going to leave you. You're not going to betray yourself, and you develop this trust with yourself. How does that change things so that you're not coming from a place of scarcity and calling something a boundary when it's your own BS?
Mm-hmm. Right. And being in a place, as you say, of knowing yourself and not needing to have this protective bubble around yourself, dropping those shields and being able to be vulnerable with another person and feel safe doing that, and really getting to a space of truly having deep heart-based connections with other people. A place of safety and confidence in oneself, and love for oneself, and appreciation that we're all splinters of the divine and all connected, and that we really don't need those shields. We just need to be aware of our own truths and honor them and voice them when necessary.
Beautifully stated. Thank you. I think that was really, really important to share. And it is an exercise that is, I don't think it's a muscle that we're born with having, this developed muscle. I think it's something that we need to exercise along the lines of communication and sharing. And the more vulnerable we're able to be, the more opportunities seem to show up, at least in my experience, where I'm able to share deeper relationship with people, more honest.
Yeah.
And I find that more often than not, when I'm hurt, it's because I've hurt myself. So being able to share that with people and offer that reflection and, share, like, when you said this is how I took it, and I felt really hurt by that, right? And opening those discussions where I know in the past I would have totally avoided it. I wouldn't say that I would have ghosted somebody, but that is absolutely and entirely possible that I may have done that. And yep, here's me raising my hand saying, yep, I've done that. That's been me, because I was not comfortable in speaking my truth, in sharing, in giving somebody the opportunity. I felt like my voice was wasted, that I wasn't being heard when I've had these experiences where I, ghosted somebody. It's usually because I feel like my words are wasted. And I also recognize that is a reflection where there have been times where I assumed that somebody could not hear me in speaking my voice, and I was wrong. So it's all a journey. I can't say that I'm proud of the ways that I've behaved always, right? All I can say is I've learned.
Right.
I've tried to do better.
Exactly. Just tagging on to that, because something's really popping for me. So I have 2 teenage boys, and they're both very quirky little guys. And one of them would do things that made no sense, or not do things that I would ask, and have no explanation. Very quiet, introverted young man. And one day it just dawned on me, instead of yelling at him for not having done it or continue to nag him, just occurred to me to ask him, hey, why aren't you doing XYZ? I've asked you 3 times. And the wisdom that would come out of this child's mouth that I hadn't thought of as to why it was not logical to do whatever XYZ was at that time or whatever, just blew my mind and just expanded my consciousness so much. I said, oh my God, like, how many situations where the other person didn't do or what I thought they should do, or did something that I thought that I took improper, and just jumped to betrayal conclusions or their mean conclusions or whatever, instead of asking, why'd you do that? Really, really interesting. to open up those conversations rather than to assume. And that's part of healing work too. If you have been through a lot of damage and your paradigm is not one of it's not safe to trust people, or kindness has an agenda. Someone's nice to me, they're out to do something, it's not safe. I'd rather have someone come into my face and tell me to F off, because then I know where I stand with them, you know, and deprogramming all of that so that you can function in a world of humanitarianism after a childhood of abuse, right?
And accepting that not everybody is bad. Some people are kind. Some people really do want the best for you. Some people really do love you, even though you may not have experienced that as love throughout your life. Maybe love looked like abuse and neglect and whatever. So that's what feels comfortable.
Right. Yay. String of narcissist boyfriends. Woo.
Yay.
Yay.
I love that experience.
Woo. That was fun. No, it wasn't. But we learned it. We figured it out eventually.
When the red flags look like what you've always experienced, they don't show up as red flags.
Right. Yeah.
They might look like love. And so that's a lot of unwinding to do.
Yeah. What is healthy love look like?
Love feels like home. Actually, it's not butterflies and fireworks. Butterflies and fireworks, so much fun until it's not.
Until it's not. Yeah. Until the train hits the brick wall.
Yes.
Yay.
Yeah. And there's shrapnels and body parts.
Yeah. Been there, done that. Have several t-shirts.
Yep. Have quite a collection.
Right.
So I might need to clean out my collection.
Yay. Yes. I love that idea. In sort of closing out and wrapping up, I feel called to talk about ways you can talk to your body and what is the body for anyway.
I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, so what is the body for? If you consider yourself as like, this eternal soul housed into this body mechanism, the body is for touching, feeling, running, copulating, wearing clothes and feeling the sensuality of different fabrics on the body, adornment, makeup, whatever, perfumes that you can put on the body. The eternal soul doesn't need perfume, right? But it's nice on the body.
The body is to experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's just everything in the physical world is really physically for the body. And so, some of the things that you can ask your body, if you're in a restaurant and open the menu, body, what do you want to eat? And it's kind of a fun game because sometimes I'm surprised at which item pops out at me or what feels like my body wants to enjoy.
Same.
What do you want to do now? Where do you want to go? What clothes do you want to wear? What clothes do you want to wear to meet new people? What clothes do you want to wear to make more money? What clothes do you want to wear to just feel good today?
I love those conversations. And I've definitely been engaging in those. And I just feel like I have a best friend who's with me and like we're in this together. Maybe for the first time ever.
I get that. The more that I've done sort of the body whispering aspect of my healing practice, the more I've come to really know that the body is its own organism with its own kind of consciousness and its own experiences and its own language.
Yes. And individual body parts as well and organs. They have their own signatures and experiences and things that they tend to hold on to or let go of.
And the body, from my point of view, is very much like a small child where it's constantly listening to your thoughts and your words, and it will accommodate you whether you like it or not.
Yeah, it does feel like that. I've noticed my conversations that I've been having, not just in the body talk like we've been talking about, but in journaling sessions where I've said, okay, let's talk. And some really startling things have come to light. Like, ouch, feel that, right? I've noticed the conversation shifting where at first the things that were said felt like a child speaking to me. And there are times that I still, talk to my body like a child because it's this tenderness, right? Like I can relate to that. If I think of a child holding a child, and you wouldn't want this child to be injured in any way, right? You would want to kindly regard it. It's easier for me to feel that tenderness if I imagine it like a child. But I have also noticed the conversation going from a very mouthy and straightforward child to more of an adult and even a very wise and loving guide. It moved from, child to more of a sister to, I don't know if I'm at the place of mother yet, but definitely like maybe even an older sister. So I'm just watching this relationship develop. But yeah, allowing the discussion of hearing the child's voice also helps to bring up the stuff from childhood that might be ready to clear.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Love that.
Is there anything else that we want to touch on? Anything that you feel is still open? Do you feel like we're complete for this episode?
Yeah, I feel like there's more going deeper, but it feels like another whole episode down the line.
I feel that. Yeah. This isn't a one and done. Obviously, any of our episodes are, it's a constant evolvement. So there's always a semicolon at the end, not a period. So we can continue the discussion later. Part 2.
Thank you all for joining us. Until next time, I'm Ariana.
And I'm Cami. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Conscious Conversations. We hope that the insights and wisdom shared here have resonated with you and sparked new pathways of growth and transformation.
We value your presence and engagement, and we invite you to be an active part of our conscious community. Your comments, questions, and shares contribute to the collective expansion of knowledge and awareness.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave a comment or share it with someone who might benefit from these transformative conversations. Together, we can create ripples of positive change.
We also offer personalized sessions and resources to support you on your journey of personal growth and spiritual healing. Visit our websites listed in the comments section to explore the various energetic healing modalities and sessions we provide.
Remember, conscious growth is a continuous journey, and we're honored to walk this path with you. Subscribe to our podcast to stay connected and never miss an episode as we explore new dimensions of consciousness and elevate the collective vibration.
Join us next time for another enlightening episode of Conscious Conversations. Until then, keep expanding your mind and embracing the infinite possibilities that lie within.